What's up guys, I'm Huck, you're watching AMD Garage. We're going to check out some new Detroit Speed goodies they sent us a couple weeks ago. This is the Detroit Speed Max setup for a 67 to 87 C10. This is a killer piece. I can't wait to show y'all all the little details. We're going to start off right here. This is where all the magic happens. If you don't know, the suspension in our square body trucks and the 67 to 72, that stuff came out in 63 technically, and there were a few changes over the years, but it was designed in the 50s. So they're trucks they're not supposed to handle. They're supposed to haul cattle and haul hay and whatever. So even if you start with some tubular control arms and a basic bolt-on coilover setup, yes, you improve the handling, but you're never going to really make the truck handle like a Corvette or better until you change all the pickup points, and that's what this is about. This whole cross member replaces the factory one, and it's much lighter and stronger, and it raises all the geometry up, so it helps your instant center and your roll center in the truck, so it won't lean so much in the turns. So it's really cool. Detroit Speed actually puts a number plate right here on all of these, so they have a serial number. I have the 97th kit they've made. Pretty cool. So talking about the stock cross member, those things are cast iron. Well, they're not cast iron, they're cast steel. They're huge, they're really wide. When you put coilovers on those, you have to cut a hole in the pocket. You're still dealing with the old pickup points that are very low and allow the truck to lean in the turns. So the cross member replaces the factory one. These upper pieces go on the outside of the frame rail. That's what will hold the upper control arm. The lower control arm goes into the cross member. And then these cast pieces right here are the upper coilover mount. So all of this is modular, it bolts together, and it will make everything really strong up front. So, and the cool part is all this stuff's made in the USA. It's even cast into these pieces, made in the USA and DSE. So this is quality stuff. So this is essentially how the front will be in the truck. Frame rails will be right here, and there's different mounting holes. There's two different sets. There's the 73 to 87, and then there's two for a 67 to 72. For 67 to 72 trucks, the wheel usually ends up being back in the wheel well a little too much, so they give you an inch forward set to center that wheel in the wheel arch of the 67 to 72. You wouldn't use that on the 73 to 87, so we're just going to use the standard holes for that. So they also send new engine stands for the engine mounts. So these bolt in like that, and we'll sandwich the frame between them and those outer pieces. And then you bolt your actual motor mounts to this. And then these two brackets right here are for the sway bar up front. They'll locate, I have to look at the instructions, but they locate on the front of the cross member, and then you have to drill a hole up on the frame rail, and they'll hold the sway bar out here out front of the steering rack. So then moving on to the control arms, these things are really nice. When I unboxed them, I just sat there and looked at them for a few minutes, looked them over. They got this nice, everything in the kit is really nice powder coated, black powder coat. You got these, I guess they're billet steel, but they're very nice cross shafts, very nicely machined. They have lugs in them for your caster. Everything has Delrin bushings, so these are a self-lubricating plastic, so you don't have to worry about polyurethane bushings and them squeaking and sounding like a 98 Ford Explorer with 300,000 miles going down the road. They've got these big beefy ball joints, and they're bolt-in, so they're serviceable. You got Zerk fittings for the bushings. All this stuff's really nice. So these are the upper control arms. So then these are the lower control arms. These are really beefy units. They're pretty heavy. They're big, thick wall tubing. Same Delrin bushing, so they'll self-lubricate, but you also have a Zerk fitting. The sway bar mounts, big thick shock tabs to pick up the coilover. And again, big, beefy ball joints. These are actually Moog problem solvers, so they're good ball joints. And yeah, this stuff's nice. Then we move on to the coilovers, since they attach to the control arms. Detroit Speed uses JRI shocks. I used to be in the racing business, and JRI was one of the top racing shocks. They make nice stuff too. So our kit is equipped with the 550-pound front springs. If I remember right, they do have a heavier and a lighter option depending on what your engine setup is. We chose the 550-pound because I have an aluminum LS motor, so this should do nicely. And these are really nice machined pieces. You can adjust the collar up and down, adjust your ride height. They have a Torrington bearing here on the bottom so the spring can spin and move freely. Has a nice jam lock so you don't over time lose height and this thing back off. And there's a little adjustment knob right in this window so you can adjust how stiff or how soft the shocks ride. So this is nice. I keep saying that about every little piece, but I'm blown away at how nice this kit is. So then we'll move over here. So here is one of the, this is probably the second main piece besides that cross member that is just a beautiful piece. These things are works of art. The front spindles, they're DSE's proprietary design. They're a really nice machined, very, very just beautiful piece. And the cool thing about these is they use the hub and the unit bearing for a 99 to 06 GMT 800 two-wheel drive truck. So these are available at any parts house. They're serviceable. They bolt in. There's no problem to replace them once there's some miles and wear on them. And this gets rid of the old school spindle with the inner and outer bearings and the adapter so you can run a modern brake. Gets rid of all that. So because this uses a GMT 800 hub, you can also use a floating rotor. They also provide those. We'll look at those in a minute. And you have your choice of lug pattern 5-on-5 or 5-on-4 and 3/4, you know, small car, big truck. And then they have this steering arm, and this really gets all the Ackerman right, all the geometry right for when you're trying to push that truck hard and get the handling going and doing autocross and mountain runs and track days. So these things are made in the USA like everything else. They have DSE cast right in them. I love these things. I hate to put them on the bottom of the truck. I want to show them off. Oh, slipped. Whew, that was heavy. So then the next part of this that is also from the GMT 800 family, which is great, is the steering rack. So this is a two-wheel drive, 99 to 06 Chevy or GMC truck rack. It has been revalved specific to their design, but this rack's the same as those trucks. It'll bolt right up. You can find replacement bellows if you tear one of these bellows, no problem. So yeah, it's got solid bushings in here. It'll mount right to that cross member. You won't have any flex of the rubber bushings that some of the stock ones have. So that's going to be a good upgrade over the old steering box and sector steering. So then this piece obviously is the front sway bar. It's really nice. I think it's 1 3/16. I need to look. Can't remember how big it is, but it's specifically designed and tuned to work with the shocks and the springs and everything. And it's nice powder coated, got their logo up front. It's cool. So when you convert to rack and pinion on these trucks, one of the biggest challenges is how to get from the factory steering column that's kind of far over on the firewall down around the headers and the frame rails and then down to the steering rack. And a lot of guys end up using the double joints and a little standoff with a Heim joint to hold the double D bar, and you end up having this weird, I've seen 3 joints, 4 joints trying to go down there. So DSE figured out that if you just trim a little bit of the frame rail and then bolt this on to reinforce that top flange, you have a straight shot from the steering column down to the steering rack. So all you need is 1 bar and then a joint at each end. So it just simplifies the geometry, and it'll help the feel, honestly, to not have all those different pieces for your steering setup. So then when we were talking about the spindles, I mentioned that they use the GMT 800 hub and a floating rotor. So DSE has also been awesome enough to offer a set of 13-inch rotors that are already pre-drilled for both the 5-on-5 and the 5-on-4 3/4 bolt pattern. So you don't even have to stress about trying to find which rotors to run. One thing I forgot to mention on these spindles, not only do they use the GMT 800 hub, but they're also designed to use a GMT 800 brake caliper. So you can go take a factory caliper bracket and a caliper from pretty much any 99 to, honestly, 99 to now truck and bolt it on here. So my daily driver's an 05 Z71 that has the bigger front brakes from the factory. I could slap those on here. One upgrade for those trucks is the 2019 up half-ton 4-piston caliper. That's a big upgrade for those modern trucks, so I'm thinking I'm going to try that 4-piston caliper on the front of my square body. It's got to be better. It's got to woe that truck down, since a square body doesn't weigh near what a new truck does. So I think that's the route I'm going to go. And then another thing about Detroit Speed is they think about everything. There's no questions left when you order this kit. They give you the tie rod ends. They give you all the sway bar mounting hardware, end links, bushings, collars for the frame, upper control arm hardware, bagged and labeled, lower control arm hardware, bagged and labeled, main front crossmember hardware, bagged and labeled, anti-roll bar, bagged and labeled, coilover hardware, bagged and labeled, steering rack, bagged and labeled, engine mounts, bagged and labeled, and the little coilover hats, bagged and labeled. They even offer a brake hose bracket kit, because sometimes the brake hoses on these trucks end up at a goofy angle and they'll hit the caliper, may rub the coilover, whatever. So this will hold your brake hose away from all that. And then they even offer, for the guys that are going to be racing, these drop-in camber shims. So I plan to drive my truck on the street a lot and run to the event, and then get there, run the event, and then drive it home. So for me, these are awesome. I can jack the truck up at the track, loosen a couple nuts, pull these out to get me more camber so it'll handle better, run the event, jack the truck up, put these back in. It'll straighten the wheel back up so I don't have terrible tire wear on my way home. So this is really cool. This is all the rear stuff. I'm tired. I don't know how Eddie does this and talks so much. So this is all the rear suspension. You can buy this stuff separately. You can just run the front, you can just run the rear, you can buy a little at a time, whatever you want to do. We got it all. So we're going to start off with these C-notches. Just like everything else, super nice. The welds are beautiful. Everything, all the flanges are nice and straight, nothing's goofy here, and you have all the bolt holes already pre-drilled, so you just fit this up on the truck and bolt it in. After you use their template. Now this is really cool because most companies that offer C-notches for these trucks either don't offer a template at all, or it's a paper or a cardboard one. This one locates, this little slot locates in a hole on the frame, and you literally just sit this up on the frame rail, align that slot with a hole, and mark your cut. Super simple, takes the guesswork completely out of it. The next one I guess we'll talk about are these frame brackets for the link bars. So these will bolt to the frame where your front leaf spring hanger goes. So you knock the rivets out of the frame, drop that bracket, re-drill the holes a little bigger. You will have to drill 2 new holes, and then this thing has 4 bolts on either side, and it's mounted on there very strong. You got 1 for each side. Don't drop it. Don't scratch the powder coat. Oh, scratched it. So then these pieces are for the rear axle. So for my truck, I have about 425 horse in my 5.3 LS. I don't plan to do any engine upgrades at the moment, so this bolt-on setup will be perfectly fine. They also offer a rear bracket that's Weld-On to the axle for higher power levels, or if it's a dedicated track truck. We're going to be running Autocross, but I'm not dedicated to only doing that. I still use this thing mainly on the street, so this will be fine. So basically, this bracket locates on top of your leaf spring perch on the rear axle. It has a little pin in it that will pick up the center locator hole, go on top, and then bolts hold these together. This one goes below the axle, and this will pick up the other end of the 4 link bars, and then the shock comes down in here. The coilover mounts in the back. So this is basically a one-trick pony for the axle. Oh, and the upper bracket also picks up the 4 link bars up top. So it'll sit in the truck like this. If I can keep it still. Wait a minute. There, it goes in the truck like that. And then these little guys, these are the upper coilover mount. So they pick up the back of the C-notch, and they have 2 bolts. You can set it in the lowest setting for the highest ride height. You can set it in the middle for a mid ride height, or you can set it in the upper holes for the lowest ride height, which is the only ones you should use. Whew. My back hurts. Same thing as the front. They have all the hardware bagged and tagged and labeled, everything you need. These are the bump stops that go in the C-notch. You can, depending on where you set the coilovers height-wise, you may need to trim these so you're not bottoming out all the time. But then it also has the hardware for mounting the coilovers in the C-notch as well as the axle brackets. And then more hardware, and more hardware. So then the main big piece in the back is this new cross member for the Panhard bar, or as some people say, Panhard bar. And this will bolt in the frame. I think you do have to drill a couple holes, and then the Panhard bar will locate here on the frame side, and then this bracket connects to the axle with some U-bolts down like that. And the Panhard bar will go from there to there, and that is what locates your axle side to side. So you're not getting into a bedside with a tire. You go into a corner and load it up. It's not going to act all weird like leaf springs do. This will keep the axle in one place. This is the Panhard bar, you see, because it's longer than everything else. And all of the Panhard bar and the 4-link bars are really cool. The big problem with this kind of setup in the past has been, how do you adjust these? Some kits have a jam nut on each side with left-hand threads and right-hand threads. You turn the center of the bar and you can adjust everything without pulling it off the truck. Or you'd have to bust this jam nut off and pull this out, or pull this out of the truck and then spin this end to get it adjusted, which is always a pain. So what they've come up with is you have the jam nut and adjustment on this end, and then this end is what they call a swivel link. So this allows the bar to move inside the end. And also another problem that has plagued 4-link setups in the past, if you have a jam nut on this end and a jam nut on this end, as you're going through the corners with the vehicle, the bars will try to twist on both ends, and if it twists the opposite way, it's jamming one end in harder, so you won't be able to get that jam nut off, and it's loosening the other side and may screw up your geometry. So it's really cool. They've figured out how to let this bar slide inside this joint, and it allows a little rotation there. So that's on the Panhard bar and all 4-link bars. And then the last one is the rear shocks and coilovers. Same as the front. They're a little smaller body shock in the back because there's not as much weight. We're running a 200-pound spring on these versus the 550 up front. And these are also adjustable with this knob. You just click it one way or the other. And these are also made by JRI, and they're, again, really nice shocks. They've pretty much thought of everything. I got a question from the audience. Yes, sir. Oh, the valve stem on the shock, that's how they charge them. So you can, you know, if these get tired and starting to wear down, you can send them back to Detroit or JRI, and they can recharge them with the nitrogen, so they work the same. You do have the option for a double adjustable coilover with a remote reservoir. That way you get the short body, get some more fluid, so it stays cooler being in the reservoir rather than in the shock moving up and down. We didn't get that for my truck yet. I've still got a ways to go till I'm ready to be that competitive. We'll upgrade to those later on. But this is a heck of a kit. I highly recommend it. Just going through and opening up all the boxes, I'm blown away at the quality. So check out Detroit Speed. They make killer stuff. They do Camaros, Chevelles, RC10s. I think they do Mustang stuff. They do all kinds of things. They're based out of Mooresville, North Carolina. They offer instructions, or they include instructions for the front and the rear kits. I don't know if you can see how thick that is. They have every detail in here. They tell you what brakes you can run. They tell you what size wheel and tire that you can clear as a suggestion. They have a parts list. They have a hardware checklist. They have a torque spec chart, and then good pictures for all the instructions of every step of the process. So of all the suspensions I've messed with over the years, none of them have come with quite an as extensive of a set of instructions as these. Very, very awesome.
This might help.
My assistant brought me my paperwork. Core workout.